Hello and welcome back to another video on, of course, Japanese swords. And today in this video, I'd like to go over the Gokaden and what that means and try to show you some examples of tangs. And I'm going to try to only speak within the realm of what I know. Try not to speak out of turn. If anybody has any more information, write in, ask. I'll research some more things in the future. But yeah, here it goes. So the Gokaden refers to, it literally means, go is five. A den is like a school or style, like tradition. So like the five different Japanese sword traditions, which were more like coherently defined in the Koto era, like before 1596, or some people rounded up to 1600 or 1603, I've heard of. But within the Koto era, it was more clear. So these schools, not really schools, there's styles and schools developed within that. These styles developed at different points in Japanese history and really were focused in different areas. Um, and they did change, though. It's just like anything else, anything artistic, really. There was it kind of evolved, and then it was more solid at first, and then over time it got more diffuse, less solid, and there was more variation within the tradition until you get to like the Shinto period or Shinto period, and there's just like a blend or a mix of different styles. And of course, it can't be forgotten that a lot of these smiths were trying to do what we're all trying to do, as make money. So, money is real. It's been real for a while. People have needed it to survive, and it's come in different forms. But, you know, making a living or a little extra profit has always been important. So, and we'll go over the first tradition first. I don't think I have any of these to show you, but you can look it up. And that is the Yamato tradition. And Yamato is one of those names that could be synonymous with Japan anyway. So that's probably why they had in World War II the battleship Yamato. So it's a very prideful name. But the Yamato tradition were swords made for wars, I think around like the mid 800s. So I'm trying to go in date order here. They're more slender, and the hamon is more subdued. Maybe like a medium or small. And a lot of these blades at this point, you'll find, if you find them, cut down. So they'll have been shortened because of the time period they're made. The more time that goes by, the more likely it is that a sword would have been shortened to, and most times just to fit the user, maybe to comply with some sort of length edict, but usually just to fit the user, everyday wear later on in samurai history and Japanese history. So the next school after that is the Yamashiro tradition. Again, this is from my understanding, from what I've read, they're very similar to Yamato tradition, with the long, slender, with a smaller tip, but overall more ready for use, like thicker at the mune, maybe wider at the shinogi, and look like altogether more substantial than the Yamato blades. And again, I think I've seen very few ubu, meaning like original, not shortened Yamato or Yamashiro style blades that were like early Yamato or Yamashiro. Yamashiro is more like, I guess, 900s to around the year 1000. So, and then the next school after that, or tradition after that, not school, there are different schools within the traditions, but the next tradition after that is Bizen, and they were very prolific. A lot of blades made in Bizen. And these are areas of Japan. Bizen, Bishu. You'll see that on sword tangs, whether or not the signature is legitimate, Bizen or Bishu. And I do have a sword that reflects that tradition. The exterior is in a little bit of rough shape, but the blade is not. Looks pretty good. Again, I'm going to show you this. And they tend to be altogether shorter than Yamato blades. A little bit more substantial, but again, there are exceptions to each one of these schools. This is a Bizen blade that still has it's ubu, hasn't been cut down, and it's rather old. But as you'll be able to see, and I want to do this the right way, there is a kind of characteristic nakago tang on this. I can get this apart. Removing all the habaki and that. See, I have more of that kind of ending to the nakago. I'm trying to use the Japanese terms wherever I can. But this one, you could tell from here, from the back, it's seen some use. It's seen a few polishes. It's kind of worn out. It's in pretty decent shape, but it is kind of worn out. You can see how much thicker and more substantial it originally was. This part is than the blade part, especially as you go up towards the tip. So I like that. It's old. It's seen some use. It's a, genuine, used samurai sword. It is straight. It has no chips, no bends, no nicks. I really do like it. As you can see there, see, openings. I don't think that's going to get any better throughout its life. Hopefully, I know I will take care of it, and whoever takes care of it next keeps it oiled and protected. So I'll try to show you the temper line as well as I can. It really does vary, as you see, and gets a little thin and diffuse into the tip area, but it is there. So again, this would be more characteristic of a Bizen style blade. And of course, I have to put this all back, and I'm trying to use this opportunity also to appropriately oil these swords before I put them away. Now, I'll show you. I have this. This is my favorite sword oil. It's worked. All of my swords, none of them have developed rust with this, with my methods. Never had any problems. It's not really crazy expensive. I don't really think it's super traditional. It says 100% natural choji oil. All right. But what I do is I just put a little bit. I'll try to show you without tilting it, but it's just a tiny drop, right? And then I want to spread it here, and I'm going to touch the tang, right? Not with the hand I had the oil on, because the tang should not be oiled. You can touch the tang with your bare hands, that's fine. But I'm spreading the oil out here, and a few drops is really all it should take to oil a well-polished blade, because the oil shouldn't be finding and settling into little crevices or anything like that. And what I use is, again, this may sound silly, but I use either a non-coated tissue, so like no puffs plus or anything like that with like stuff in there. That's not going to be good. I don't want to take a chance with steel. Or, a one ply of a napkin. And again, I don't know if this is super technical. It's not traditional, but it works. It doesn't mar the surface at all. It hasn't hurt the polish on any of my blades. And my methods have worked for going on 20 years. So, like I said, it works. And I wipe it almost completely clean, as you can see, because you only need a thin layer to work. Any more than a thin layer, and I think you're asking for problems, because then it just gets gunked up and it stays there. And I, I think something bad might happen. Best case scenario, it's still a waste of oil. So anything you pay for, why would you want to waste it? Don't. All right, putting that together. And again, some people put this together by like putting this on a hard surface and doing that. But the problem is you could end up destroying whatever surface you do that to. So I found that this works just as well. Don't go crazy. Again, usually there's no real need to go crazy anywhere and anything. So you put that pin back in, and that's why I have my little traditional brass sword hammer here. I want this pin to go in just enough to get it situated where it's not going to come out. And that's it. Again, you don't have to go crazy. Sometimes I bought swords that come in the mail, and the pin was like jackhammered in there. There's no need for that. It's all right. Just put it in there snugly and ship it well. It should be fine. All right. So put that back in there again, like this. This is how I do it. Sliding on the mune. Here, careful not to abrade the sides. Maybe once or twice wouldn't matter, but you do it a whole bunch of times, you can end up with a problem. All right. So that's a Bizen style, Bizen tradition style blade. The next style is in date order is Soshu, based in originally the provinces Sagami, Soshu, Sagami. And you can look this up in like an old map of Japan. There's new names after World War II, so you have to look at like the old province names. So the old Soshu Sagami. I'm not sure if that's like new or whatever, but look it up. So for that style was characterized and made famous by blades by Masamune. You probably heard of Masamune. So he's like the most famous Japanese swordsmith that even like people who aren't into swords have heard about. And he had a very famous student, a very good student who called Sadamune, and he had 3 very good pupils also, and Sadamune was one of the 10 of Masamune's great pupils. Those swords are characterized by really beauty and practicality, influenced a lot by the Mongol invasions of 1274 and 1281, where the Japanese found their swords wanting against really thick Mongol armor. Because before they had really fought outsiders. For hundreds and hundreds of years, the Japanese had just fought each other. And their weaponry, they become very isolated. The weapons, the armor, the tactics. Before the Mongol invasion, they were used to calling out warriors of an equal rank. And, there weren't a lot of these like mass, faceless, nameless battles. But that's the way the Mongols rolled. They were just looking to take over the place. They don't care what rank you are or who you are. If you're going to engage in like a fair fight, they're just going to keep coming like a leather tank. And the Japanese found this out the hard way when their blades that they had, usually based in other traditions like Yamato Yamashiro tradition or offshoots of that, snapped, broke, failed, didn't penetrate the armor. They just weren't sturdy enough for that kind of fighting. So Masamune and others wanted to develop and really perfect swords in that new tradition that did the job. They were more sturdy and, of course, that looked pleasing too. There's more activity within the body of the blade of those swords. There's more activity in the hamon. And I think for a better understanding, of course, consult the books that I mentioned in my previous video. But what I'm going to do is show you a Soshu tradition sword. Now, the best example I have is one that's in Kyugunto. fittings. This one, these are Field Officers Kyugunto fittings with the silver mon on the back strap. I like that. Polished race skin. And the blade is in really fantastic shape too. And it has a lot of characteristics of the Soshu tradition, including, it's hard to see, this is the mune on the back. It's a Mitsumune, where this is, it's hard to see here, but this is actually flat. So the mune part doesn't look like that. It looks like that if you look at it close. It's not this iore mune. Most Japanese swords have an iore mune, whether it's high or shallow. But Soshu tradition blades, they have this Mitsumune where it's like this, and then there's a flat area on top. And sometimes the flat area on top of the back, this is the back, is wider or narrower, but this has that more narrow Mitsumune, and a lot of activity in the hamon and the G, the the body of the blade as well. It's difficult to get too much detail on here, but it is there. And there it is, and I'll try to show you. I'm doing the best I can. So I'll take this pin out as well, because I had received, like I said, the request to show more of what the tangs look like on these swords. So I removed the pin. As you can see, it's a little stuck. What I like to do is keep it simple. It's loose. That's it. Start simple. You don't want to start with maximum force. That's unnecessary. And as you see, I tried to slide off all the fittings together. They all come off together when possible. And then the habaki. This way, nothing gets lost, because sometimes there's an order to those things, to those fittings. The seppa, the guard, and the fuchi, that you don't want to interrupt, because it really matters how it goes back together. So this is the tang of that sword here. It's been remounted a few times, as you could see. This has been shortened. I don't know whether it's been suryage or osuryage. Suryage means shortened. Osuryage means greatly shortened. And in Japanese, that o usually means a lot, like o sensei. So o sensei means like the greatest sensei, like Yushiba. Mori Yushiba is called o sensei. So this is the tang. I'm trying to show you the best I can. It's been remounted at least twice. So again, I'm going to be really careful about how the oil goes on here. You just need a little bit, just a few drops. And yes, I know, I'm applying the oil with my fingers. I am. I am applying the oil with my fingers. I don't think it's going to damage anything. It never has before. Making sure I get it everywhere, but then I'm essentially going to wipe off most of it. And I do it this way. Sometimes you might have heard that people do it from the point down, so as not to get debris from here going up the blade. But I haven't found the need to do that. I haven't really discovered much debris. Maybe on a sword that's not polished and the mounts are rough, maybe. But I think if you're careful and you take your time, things will be just fine, and nothing bad is going to happen. Again, I think if you can look down the blade and you see big streaks of oil, you probably have too much oil on there. And there should be a very thin coat of oil that sits on the blade, but not enough that it shouldn't be like obscuring the blade a lot. So we're going to put this back together now, making sure once the oil is rubbed off not to touch the blade. Touching the tang is fine, but not with too much oil. You don't want to oil up your tang or ever polish it. Don't do that. Putting together these Kyugunto handles is a little tricky too. It can be. So this goes here, right? Lower it into there. Again, shimmy, be careful. No need to go crazy. It's all right. Okay. Make sure it goes in there. All right, see, we were careful, beautiful. It works. I put the pin back in. Put the makugi, the pin. Again, if it doesn't go in gently, try the other side, try another way. It doesn't have to fit in there super tight. Maybe if you're bringing it into battle, but don't bring this into battle. And then we put this back carefully, extra carefully, because I really like this one. All right. Now, the next sword I'm going to show you. Oh, before I do that, I'll talk about the last of the 5 traditions. It's the Mino tradition. Again, started in, Mino province. And they were another rather prolific sword producer. It was really Mino and Bizen are amongst the most prolific areas of sword manufacture, even into World War II, the World War II era. That's why a lot of those books that I showed you before in the other video, they were really heavy on swords from Bizen and Mino province. There weren't, and I mentioned this in the book video, in that one book that I really like, there weren't a lot of examples like Soshu tradition examples or Yamato or Yamashiro. And to see Ubu, meaning like not cut down, Soshu tradition examples and Yamato and Yamashiro, you'll have to check out really high-end websites, museums. There's not a lot of them left around. There's a lot more blades that are Ubu in the Mino and Bizen tradition. And there's just more of them out there. So this, I am unsure as to the tradition. I'm thinking Bizen, but like I said, I'm not a one-man Shinsa panel. I don't know. All I know is it's in good shape. It's original. It's authentic. It is a Tsurayage blade in almost World War II mounts. The scabbard is, and the iron fitting at the end is a traditional like samurai fitting. The handle is World War II era. The handle and the guard. See, it originally had a leather strap that went here, probably to a leather cover that is missing or disintegrated or whatever. So again, we're going to take this apart. Now, if it's stuck, what I like to do is just take your hand and do that. See, it got unstuck. You just take your hand and squeeze. It's a lot better than ripping the saya off. Again, it's stuck, it's tight. You go to take it out and you're like, man, this is stuck. Just wrap your hand around, squeeze, look at that. It's off. I'm going to pull away from the mune. Careful going towards the tip, especially because some of these swords have somewhat narrow point sections like this one does. See, it gets kind of narrow up there. Looks broad from here, narrow there. If you're too rough with taking this out sideways or whatever, you could end up breaking off some of the tip, which would be a bad day. So this sword has what I would call a narrow or medium suga. temper line, and there's more activity in this temper line than what I can show you here. I'm sorry about that. But this blade is rather long, and it was longer, as I'll show you now. Again, this is another pin it's not in as well as it should be, or it's not the best pin. So I really should make another one. Again, making a makugi is not crazy hard. You can make them out of chopsticks. You just got to be careful that you don't, like I said before, slam something in. Take your time, cut it down. I got to do a better job on this one. And again, see, handle's a little tight. Before I go pounding on anything, what I like to do with these swords, this doesn't work with the Kyugunto because of the handle design. What I like to do here is, again, wrap my hand around close to the tsuba, right? And I just squeeze my hand. And I can feel it loosen and pop off. It's a much more low-impact way of doing this than slamming away at things. And again, I took off, see, the whole thing as one assembly. And next, I slide up the habaki. I don't slide the habaki off with the guards and the seppa and the handle because, well, it's not the way I do it, and my hands aren't that big. So if I had much bigger hands, maybe. So this is probably a Bizen tradition blade as well. It is unsigned. It's been remounted at least once. And it is either Tsurayage or O Tsurayage. I can't tell because many times on Tsurayage blades, there will be a line. You'll see a line somewhere that really doesn't line up with the habaki, and you might see that line and be wondering, all right, what the heck's going on here? That was because whoever shortened the blade denoted that line to mean that the bottom part is the older blade, and the newer part is where it was shortened. So on some Tsurayage or blades, not O Tsurayage, because O Tsurayage means you don't see anything of the original tang. Like, it's been moved up so much, like it would be moved up to here, that the original tang is gone, the original nakago. On Tsurayage blades, what you'll see a lot is this line. Below it, all right, that's your original nakago, or what's left of it, because it was probably cut off down here. And above it is, was blade section. That is now into nakago. So I could show you better from here. And maybe you could see some activity in the blade. And I'm trying to show you an overall profile, but I do not want to touch this with my bare hands unless my hands have the choji oil on them, and then I'm going to wipe it right off. So I'll show you the tang. There's no trace of a signature. This end looks very roughly finished, but it looks like it was very roughly finished a long time ago because there's a big layer of rust that has developed since then. I don't know why it would have been finished that roughly or shortened that roughly, but I can only hypothesize that perhaps it was because there's a signature that was false there or something happened. But I think at least over 100 years ago, so I don't know what that thing could have been or why this would be so crudely finished. I don't know. But if anybody out there can posit an idea, please feel free to write in. Again, the oil's on there. Now, I'm going to carefully wipe the oil off, and I also like to go by feel, too. If you feel as though something's under here that shouldn't be, stop. Like if it feels gritty, you don't want to feel gritty. You want to feel smooth. It should feel smooth. So that's smooth, right? And you don't have to dig into the tang either. To oil it, just do this. Maybe once along the mune there, which is going to go against the bottom of the scabbard anyway. And then the habaki can go back on, and I'll show you my process for doing this. Like I said, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and nothing bad has happened. Make sure the seppa are in the right order. Put it through. Take your time. I know this isn't the most exciting part. I'm sorry about that. But then put it in here. Okay. Make sure it lines up so you can see light through the hole. See? Look around for your pin that you should have had somewhere. Here it is. And sometimes also these pins are tapered. You see, I don't know if you could see it. The end towards the sword is a little narrower than this end of this makugi, because it's meant to go in there like that, and it's a pressure fitting to taper in there. So, again, this is one I have to revise, but they are tapered. It's in there tight enough. It's holding it together. Nothing bad's going to happen. I'm not looking for trouble. I'll just make it better later. So what we're going to do is take your time to carefully put that in. There. And the next sword I'm going to show you has an ubu tang. There's ubu nakago on this one. Similar to the bizen blade that I showed you before. I believe this is more of a Mino tradition blade, because the Mino tradition carried on even into the World War II era. And this is a Navy kaiganto. Again, it's missing some fittings, which maybe I can get. This is a scabbard that I did make because the original scabbard was beaten to pulp. And this is genuine Japanese urushi on here. It's like 5 coats of urushi. And they're all genuine fittings, but I'm still working on this one. And this is the traditional kaiganto wrapping and pommel fitting. So again, we're going to take this one out. This is another one that's tight in there. Again, the hand, squeeze, you can feel it loosen. Slide out from the mune. You can't see it, but I have a towel here. Place your scabbard, and whenever you put a blade down, on a towel, because sometimes you might have seen this. I'll see swords for sale, and they're like on concrete or cement or something. I'm like, what are you thinking? You're trying to sell something where the condition matters. It would be like advertising a car in a lake. Like, don't do that. So this was made by the World War II smith Jumyo. And I'll show you the tang. There's a signature on the tang, and this is genuine. And it was advertised as a gendaito. I don't think it is, though. I think this is oil tempered because, as you may notice, you may not from here, this temper line doesn't have as much activity as the water quench temper lines. And when you look up close at the both of them, if you get close pictures or really good pictures, better pictures, or if you're looking at something in hand, the oil tempered temper lines just don't have the level or subtlety of activity that water tempered temper lines do. There's definitely a temper line, like the Hammond there, but on something water tempered, you can really tell that there's a lot of depth and like tiny little crystals there. You can almost like see the crystals. On something oil tempered, they're so small you really can't see them. It's hard to describe now. It's easier to see in person. And again, we're going to take out the pin with the brass hammer very carefully. There goes the pin. First order of business, find the pin, the makugi. And again, it's a little tight. It's all right. Take your hand, squeeze. Okay, see? Loosened. There you go. Now, you can make sure this all comes off at once. And what you want to do is, to balance it, you want to move your hand to the center, more to the center of the blade, and move this back. Because when this weight falls off of here, it's going to be heavier on the tip. You don't want the tip falling into the ground. So we got the whole thing. The whole ensemble gets laid on the towel. And then the habaki comes off gently on the towel. And see, that says Jumyo. Could also be read as Toshinaga. And that happens sometimes with these Japanese signatures. One person or authority might get a different translation than another person, but they're both right. But usually one translation is meant to be the name of the smith, because you can, in John Yamamoto's book, he describes this different ways to say the same character, but as far as swords are concerned, there's usually one method and one pronunciation for that smith's name. Again, this would be Jumyo. Jumyo blades were very popular throughout Japanese sword history, and meant to be like a token of good luck. So I don't know if the person who made this, their name was actually Jumyo, like their smith name, or if this was just something, the smith put on their Jumyo for good luck. But it is in fantastic shape. It's rather thick at the mune, as you can see here. See? It's almost the same width as the tang, as the nakago here. And it's meaty. It's a cleaver. It's a good condition World War II era blade. But regardless of the condition, it still needs some oil. So again, I'm going to take our choji oil, put just a drop there. Really, all I put was just like a little drop like this. Okay? Just a little bit there, right? I'm going to spread it around. Again, feeling with my hands for any debris. And usually, hopefully, that debris is just like a piece of wood from the scabbard. It's not anything else. Of course, keep this all clean. And make sure there's a uniform coat of oil on there. Take our tissue, again, a clean area of the tissue or napkin. Don't go rubbing debris back into the steel. Feels good. All right. Got a thin coat. Again, you can look down the blade like this to see if you have a good coat on it. All right. Looks good. I don't see any oil streaks. And it's protected for, in my gun safe, another few months. I highly recommend, if you have swords, you store them like guns. That's why they have gun safes. I have a gun safe with technology like a protection in it that absorbs, repels moisture. And I also have a big bag of silica gel packets in there. I find that is a good idea. That works. You want to really do everything you can to prevent moisture. Water and moisture is the enemy. And keep that away. I mean, of course, as is corrosion from anything else. This is why I don't put the thick coats of oil on. You don't need a thick coat of oil. You just need to put this together like this. Move this up. Again, we're going to move the handle on. Make sure you can see daylight through there. Okay, I can see daylight. Good. And this pin, you can definitely see better the tapering on this pin. See? I'm putting this through the wider portion of the hole. See, one side will be more of a narrow hole sometimes, and the other side will be more of a wider hole. In Japanese swords, it's in every step, in every way, at every step, detail matters. So don't ever think that, oh, well, it's not going to matter. You just slap it together however, or do whatever. The term whatever does not exist in the world of Japanese swords. There's always a specific way that it's done. So this is the wider part, and this is the tapered end. You go put it there. Voila, it's in. Again, our specific way of putting this back in along the mune. Careful, don't scrape the sides. Okay, you hear that? It's in. Treat it carefully. It's going onto a pad above me. And there it is. So I'm sorry for the length of this video. I just thought I should take my time with describing the Gokaden in these schools and how to care for the swords and all that as best I could. I mean, if you want to skip around in this video, I fully understand. But thank you for coming once again and for viewing this, and feel free to post comments, suggestions, whatever. All right. Thanks, y'all. Bye-bye.